Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar with the Advisory Board Centre in Advanced Queensland. My name is Jan Easton. I'll be facilitating the webinar today, and I'm very excited to be joined for this session on the Best Practice Roundtable for Supporting Female Founders by Louise Broekman, the Advisory Board Centre founder and CEO. Louise is an award-winning entrepreneur, researcher, and business advisor. So Louise has received recognition from industry and government at a local and national level for the work that you do supporting small businesses. And Louise is an advocate and for advisory boards and an in-demand speaker on the topic. So welcome, Louise. Thank you for joining us.
Great to be here.
We're also joined today by Gillian Gardner from Advanced Queensland. Gillian's the COO of Innovation, Engagement and Delivery in the Queensland Department of Tourism, Innovation and Sport. Gillian, I'd love to share a little bit about your background because I think it shows really the depth and breadth of experience you bring to today's discussion. So Gillian's worked for over 20 years in government at a state and federal level, working across a range of social and economic portfolios, including arts and culture, education, youth affairs, tourism, infrastructure, major events, and innovation. Career highlights for Gillian that she brings to this discussion is the Legacy and Festival programs for Gold Coast 2018 Commonwealth Games, which featured an Elevate Reconciliation Action Plan and the distribution of more than 20,000 X Games assets to schools, sporting clubs, community groups all over Queensland. Thank you, Gillian, for joining us today.
Great to be here.
And we're also joined by Deb Bauer, who's a founder and creative director of Urban Metal. Urban Metal is a highly innovative Queensland-based business that transforms spaces through creative design. Urban Metal designs can be found in spaces from commercial, retail, public spaces, schools, and residential projects. Deb will be sharing with us some of the exciting projects the team have coming up, including some powerful commitment to support First Nations artists. Deb, you are also a participant of the Female Founders Program, so you'll be sharing a little bit of direct experience from those. So welcome, Deb. Excellent. We might go ahead and jump right in. As we go through the program today, we'll be sharing with you a bit of background of the Female Founders programs that the Advisory Board Centre developed and delivered with the support of Advanced Queensland over the last 3 years. Some of the program outcomes and some of the things that were really important about the program design and impact that we were able to achieve for female founders. Louise Broekman will then share some of the additional program support that's available for the wider ecosystem. Gillian, you'll give us a bit of an overview of what's going on within Advanced Queensland and some upcoming things to support the innovation roadmap for female founders. And again, Deb will share a little bit of her experience in the program. As we go through today's discussion, we encourage everyone to submit any questions that they have through the Q&A option at the bottom of the screen. And we'll continue to cover those off at the end of the program. So why don't we go ahead and dive right in. The Female Founders Advisory Board Program was a really exciting opportunity for us to translate some research that we had done into things that were creating barriers to scale for female founders into actionable insights and programs. In 2019, the Advisory Board Centre, with the support of Advanced Queensland and other partners, undertook research into what were the factors that were creating obstacles, whether real or perceived, for female founders that were affecting their ability to achieve their growth ambitions. Some interesting insights that we found from that program when we looked at the outcomes that female founders were achieving when we compare that to the overall business population is we saw that growth was an absolute ambition. 97% of the female founders that responded to that survey indicated that they had growth aspirations for their business. And this was really important to identify because not everyone goes into business with a desire to grow. Some people go into business with a desire to either create different economic opportunities, work-life balance for themselves. But for those businesses that wanted to grow, that were female-led, we wanted to look at what were the impediments that they were facing and how those things might be able to be addressed with program support or system design. Some of the key outcomes that were shared from those founders was that they had a low access to knowledge, networks, and specialist advice that could support their growth and the scalable governance of their business when they went through a high growth journey. We took those learnings and working with Queensland government through Advanced Queensland, and we developed the Female Founders Advisory Board program. This was a three-year program that we designed and co-delivered with Advanced Queensland from 2019, and this part of the program just finished 30 June 2022. And that program included 3 key stages. We had an education program, which was around advisory board essentials and scalable governance for female-led businesses. We then had a second program, which was a board starter program, which matched high growth potential female-led businesses with an experienced advisory board chair to be able to help them map out the current governance framework within their business, any gaps, and then clarify what their key priorities were that were going to help them with their strategic growth initiatives. The third stage of the program was supporting female-led businesses with a growth board, and this was a tailored approach to be able to access specialist advice, which included an advisory board chair and advisors in a project advisory board capacity to be able to help them focus in on their priorities and realize their growth ambitions. And Deb was a participant through each stage of those programs, and we'll share a little bit of her outcomes from that. The impact of this program overall, when we look at it from more of a macro level, it really drove 3 key things that supported a growth environment for these businesses. It addressed an area of confidence for founders. This was not confidence in their ability. What we found is that the female founders in this group were absolutely confident in themselves, in their own knowledge, in their own ability to be able to drive their business growth. What they were less confident in is, how do I prioritize? How do I gain knowledge when I don't have that knowledge? And how do I make really confident, robust decisions in my business? So we needed to combine confident founders with the ability to do critical thinking beyond themselves, supported by scalable governance that would actually drive growth outcomes. And that's really what the advisory board program was designed to do for the female founders. What this led to was some participant impact. And I think it's really important that we acknowledge that the participants in the program own this impact. There's a really interesting thing with program design is it the result of the program, or was it that the program created the foundation or the springboard for the participants to achieve their own outcomes? In the advisory board space, we often have the debate, is a business successful because of the advisory board, or do successful businesses have advisory boards, right? So when we talk about this participant impact, I think it's really important to acknowledge the hard work and dedication of the founders that came through this program, their willingness to lean into the program support and turn that support into measurable outcomes for their businesses. We had over 170 program participants through the Female Founders Advisory Board program. And within the board starter and growth board participants, we surveyed those participants to report back to us on job creation and capital raising. Over 71 jobs were created at the end of the program, and these businesses are on a high growth trajectory. So I would assume that number is changing probably close to weekly for these businesses. But over 71 jobs were created through their participation in the program, and they reported over $10 million in capital being raised, both through a variety of sources. These were through venture capital, this was through private investment, and early stage seed rounds for these businesses. So some pretty impressive results that were created by these participants. This information that was shared by one of the program participants, though, is the kind of unquantifiable impact of programs like these. Tanya Goodwin is a founder that's based up in far north Queensland, and she was such a wonderful participant to be able to go through this because it highlighted the reach that this type of program was having to people who would not normally have been able to gain this type of support. Tanya has very high growth ambitions, not just for herself, but for the region. She's a pharmacist and a compounding pharmacist who wants to create advanced manufacturing on a scale that hasn't been available in far north Queensland. Through her participation in the Female Founders Advisory Board program, she was able to really clarify what those business objectives were, build a strong business case around what she was trying to achieve that included how she was going to protect her own IP, how she was going to leverage investment, and also how she was going to continue to be able to bring together other people to collaborate on this really important project. So Tanya had the support of a funded advisory board to support her in this initial phase, and she's chosen to continue on and self-fund that advisory board as she now moves into the implementation phase of this exciting project. So this to me is that really exciting piece about being able to connect people who would not have normally otherwise met to be able to achieve some pretty impressive business outcomes. I just wanted to share with you maybe 3 key learnings that we had over our time with supporting female founders that for anyone else that is looking to participate in this space can really become strong pillars for you in your program design and your engagement. The first is that there's no typical female founder. Every participant that went through this program was different. The only commonality was gender. And it was really important that we didn't use that as the overriding factor in our program design. We needed to make sure that we were actually contextualizing this program to the needs of the participant, not just the gender of the participant. The other one is around the idea of collaboration and connection to build the ecosystem. We want to see that the rising tide lifts all boats. So if you have a program design or you're providing a service that's there to support female founders, look for ways that you can leverage other support in the wider ecosystem or connect those founders into other avenues of support, programs, and assistance. Within our remit under the Female Founders Program with Advisory Board Center, there were some businesses that didn't fit our program design. And we really took it on ourselves to be able to help connect them with other government support avenues that might be more closely aligned to their objectives, other service providers that might be able to help them, or if you just know an individual connection and someone that can be that next link in the chain of support, find ways to be able to do that. Look for opportunities to collaborate rather than duplicate. So rather than running lots of competing services for female founders, look around in your local ecosystem or in the wider ecosystem and see, can I actually contribute to an existing program that's already there? Or can I contribute to the accessibility of an existing program that's already there through either sponsorship or participation? The last point that was really key was that ethical engagement was a non-negotiable. Many of the founders were coming to us at a key stage for them in their growth trajectory. And there was a lot of vulnerability around where they were at, both with their business opportunity, but also their knowledge that they had in their business. And it was really important that the frameworks were established for ethical engagement to make sure that the founders felt supported, that they were protected in this particular process from what can sometimes be predatory behavior from the sort of helpful community around them, people guiding them in different ways that might be self-serving, right? So making sure that that ethical engagement was a non-negotiable and that we empowered those female founders to understand the basics of ethical engagement so that they were better served when they went out there in the market and continue to engage with service providers, advisors, mentors, directors. Okay. So those were really 3 key learnings from us from the program that we wanted to embed. Now, what's important as we extend this beyond the remit of the particular program is how can we continue to support the ecosystem to be able to support these 3 key learnings. And Louise, I'd like to invite you over into the discussion now to share a little bit more about how the Advisory Board Center is continuing to support the ecosystem beyond the Female Founders Program.
Yeah, thanks, Jan. And I just want to say publicly too, thank you for leading this initiative that we've had over many years. And I must say, as a female founder myself, seeing how that program touched so many people's lives and their businesses in a positive and a really genuine way. I'm really proud to be able to really support these initiatives, and we want to do more. So the areas where I see our ongoing support for the sector is in a few different ways. The Certified Chair Executive Program is our cornerstone program around best practice and ethics. So we find a lot of female founders completing this program for implementing best practice inside their own organisations as they continue to grow. But also I'm really proud that it's also advancing women on boards. And best practice does matter. When we look at the advisory board sector and the growth of it globally, in less than 2 years, it grew 52%. That was reported in the last State of the Market report. And so the utilisation of advisory boards is now it's a mainstay. It's here to stay. And so the continuing practice of advisory boards being quality, and we know what good looks like, is really important for both female founders as well as for advancing women on boards. So that's the Certified Chair Program. If we look at other things and other initiatives that we will be doing there too, is the Advisor Concierge. I'm really proud of the Advisor Concierge service that we've provided to the market for the last 4 years. It's a service that has been sitting behind the Female Founders Program, and so when they actually understand what it is that their priorities are and what their organisation, what they're trying to achieve for their what's next, that's the support program that we provide in helping them scope out what are the kinds of advisors and backgrounds would really help them to actually activate that strategy. Now, that Advisor Concierge service, we've provided that support to over 1,000 businesses in the last 3 years, and we want to do more. So whenever there's an opportunity for us to collaborate and support business ecosystems and also for female founders, it's a really important service in the curation of advisory board structures, so that the whole approach of getting the right advice is really thinking about what the business needs first and managing expectations up front about those business priorities before they start actually tapping into the individuals. So we can get that, maintain that role of getting clarity around expectations about the what I need before the who I need. Then the advisory structure, whatever it is, you're able to really maximise the impact of whatever structure is being put in place. And that's been a really important part of the Female Founder Program over the last few years. And then lastly, we see that really supporting women in business, it starts with the pre-revenue through to the startup to a scale up into being a business. And we know that accelerators play a really important role in the supporting of women in business. And so the accelerator program that we have for accelerators themselves is to actually implement ethical frameworks to support the ecosystem of businesses inside an accelerator program. This is a scholarship that's been designed specifically for accelerators, for program managers, to enable that accelerator to implement best practice frameworks to maximise the value of that relationship between mentors and advisors and the individual businesses, but also to put some ethical boundaries around what that advice is. So the program managers are being provided with a scholarship program that has been launched this year to enable ethical practice to occur within their actual ecosystem. So Gillian, it'd be great to have a chat to you about that as well, because I think this is a really important piece of building the pipeline of female founders for years to come. And so really proud to be able to actually launch that program this year after about 5 years of research around how advisory services work within an accelerator ecosystem.
Excellent. Thank you, Louise, for sharing that. And Gillian, I'd like to invite you into the conversation now to share a little bit about some of the initiatives that Advance Queensland has. Just unmute yourself there, Gillian.
Rookie error. I'll put $1 in the jar. Sorry about that, everybody. Thanks very much for the opportunity to be here today and talk with a really important stakeholder group about some of the work that we've done and are doing under the Advanced Queensland banner. Many of you will know that Advanced Queensland was launched back in 2015 with the aim to drive stronger economic growth, create jobs, and help to diversify the Queensland economy. Since then, AQ has invested alongside partners over $1.7 billion in Queensland, backing almost 8,000 innovation projects and supporting the creation of 28,000 new jobs. We actually recently celebrated our version of unicorn status, having leveraged $1 billion from external partners with the investment made through Advanced Queensland into the innovation economy. So what's next for Advanced Queensland? You may have heard or seen the Premier and our Minister back in July this year launched the new Advanced Queensland Innovation for a Future Economy roadmap, reflecting the importance of supporting and investing in innovation, including in the lead up to a major sporting event that I hear is going to be held in our state in about 2032. The roadmap was developed in consultation with close to 1,000 of our innovation ecosystem stakeholders, and it obviously and naturally builds on the successes of the past 7 years of investing and delivering a range of programs and events in partnership with industry. The roadmap isn't just about us, though. It's a whole of government and whole of innovation ecosystem plan, recognising that collaboration is really key and that all the actors in our ecosystem play a role contributing to innovation success for our state. The roadmap was supported by an additional investment of $142.2 million that was announced in the 22-23 state budget this year. And in addition to that, there are other investments focused on innovation across other portfolios in government as well. There are 6 key priority areas or outcomes in the roadmap, and they are capital attraction, research collaboration and commercialisation, talent, skills and new technologies, innovative and sustainable solutions, innovative precincts and places, and a connected and inclusive innovation ecosystem. We see the document as very much a living and evolving one that will continue to reflect new initiatives as they're announced. So the best way to keep up with it will be to keep an eye on the AQ website. We'll also be including their information about how the initiatives are tracking and adding new initiatives as they come into being. So the part that's really most relevant to the topic here today is our work in the female founders space. I hope it's obvious that gender equity is a priority for the Queensland government. There are a number of commitments under the former Queensland Women's Strategy, which just wrapped up last year, for gender parity in key public service roles and on government boards. And there was also an election commitment made to supporting women founders to start and grow their businesses. The Female Founders Program itself was established in 2019 with a $6.5 million funding commitment over 4 years. And Advanced Queensland partnered with a number of organisations to deliver a suite of initiatives under that program, including skill and capability development, mentoring and coaching, access to accelerated programs and networking opportunities. The program has supported hundreds of female founders, including, I'm sure, a number who are on the webinar with us today. We're delighted to have had that opportunity to partner with the likes of the Advisory Board Centre in particular on the delivery of a number of initiatives, including helping female founders establish best practice advisory foundations and board readiness. Progress towards equity over the last few years has been particularly encouraging. We're really pleased to note that the Queensland, through the Women on Boards initiative, gender parity on Queensland government boards has now been reached, which is fabulous. And women are now serving in some of our state's most influential public-facing roles, in addition to our Premier, the Governor, the Chief Justice, the Attorney General, and our Police Commissioner are all women at the moment. There's definitely a groundswell of female founder activity and achievement too, and we sense that the momentum is really growing. Our support for female founders and researchers will continue to evolve and mature. We know the founder journey is never an easy one. I'm sure Deb knows that only too well, but we also know through the data that it's notably harder for women. Research has shown that only 4% of investment is secured by female-founded startups, and that they face more challenges opening corporate doors and accessing established business networks. But the research also shows us that on average, female-founded businesses deliver stronger returns on investment. So we see our job as getting those doors opened so you can walk through. In the last 6 months, we undertook extensive research and consultation on what the next chapter of our Female Founders program will look like. This has involved an independent external review by NOUS, which found that women are really well represented in terms of AQ support due to our targeted programs, but they typically continue to receive much lower value grants. So we want to get to the bottom of that. We also want to fully understand the key challenges faced by female founders. So we conducted or participated in a 6-month-long public sector innovation program called States of Change, specifically focusing on female founders and taking a really deep dive into the issues that female founders experience with both internal and external stakeholders. This found that, unfortunately, current entrepreneurship policies and programs are still not gender neutral, and that women-focused initiatives are often time-limited, small-scale, and oriented towards fixing women or a problem with the founders rather than addressing the problem and challenges with the broader system that women face. And then finally, in recent months, we developed a theory of change framework to really refine the overarching vision and our short, medium, and long-term focus areas for female founders' work, and designed a set of activities that will be delivered under the banner Female Founders 2.0. We heard really loud and clear from founders that the focus can no longer be on this notion of fixing what's wrong with female founders, but we need to focus effort and resources on addressing the barriers and opportunity gaps within the system. The Female Founders 2.0 incorporates a pipeline of support and key initiatives that we'll trial over the next couple of years to address barriers at all stages of the innovation pipeline, from youth, startup, and scale up through to global trade and exchange. We're going to shift our focus on measures from the number of participants to the impact on participants' businesses through funding, upskilling, and the connections that really open those doors. We will see female founders have access to the critical support and funding they need to fast track the building and scaling of your innovative businesses. And we've aligned with the themes of the new Queensland Women's Strategy, which runs out to 2027. Those are women's economic security, supporting women to move into high-paid, male-dominated industries, increasing women's representation in leadership positions and boards, alongside empowerment and recognition of women and all that they have achieved. Initiatives under Female Founders 2.0 include a co-investment fund, accelerator and mentoring programs, inspiring and developing next generation of female founders, and also profiling standout female founders. We're committed to making our ecosystem inclusive and equitable for all founders, no matter your gender or what stage of development that you are at, where you live, or what your aspirations are. The Female Founder 2.0 programs are currently intensively in the design phase, and they'll be announced and rolled out in the coming months this year and into early next year. As well as these targeted programs, through our identification of that systemic issue, we're also applying the gender equity lens to all of the Advanced Queensland programs, events, and opportunity to maximise participation by everyone, regardless of gender. And then finally, our newly announced initiative is Ignite Plus, a new pilot program to provide a range of complementary high-level business support services to our Ignite Ideas Fund Grants recipients. Ignite is another of our flagship programs, and that commences with round 9, focused on helping those recipients accelerate their business growth and maximise the funding. The program's aim is to better position companies to reach their full potential through access to curated critical business skills and opportunities to scale. It will be delivered throughout 2023. It's designed for purpose and will comprise of activities in capability building, mentoring, and ecosystem engagement. An ongoing cohort of high growth potential startup founders will be established to network, connect, and support a growing ecosystem of founders in our state. This invitation to offer has literally just gone to market. There'll be some promotion and heavy mail outs today and in the coming days. and we're now seeking proposals from organisations to partner with us to co-design and deliver these services for our founders. Thank you.
That's excellent, Gillian. And I really appreciate you sharing, I guess, not just what's coming up, but the deep reflection that Queensland Government has undertaken to really assess the impact of the different programs that have been trialled. I'd like to invite Deb into the conversation now, because one of the key things that I think was so fundamental about the design of the Female Founders Program with the support of Queensland Government was that it was accessible over a 3-year period. Deb, when we first spoke to when you actually joined the program, it was almost 3 years. It was about 2.5 years between those two. I'd like for you to just come into the conversation and maybe share a little bit about your business and what drew you to looking for support from the Female Founders Program.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Jan. So I guess to start with, when you and I first spoke, you had presented a webinar. I think it was actually part of the Innovate Queensland program, and you spoke at the time about female founders reaching a certain or a cap ceiling of sort of a certain amount of turnover. And for me, it was almost as though you were speaking directly to me, and it was, you know, you were more or less talking about all of the things that were, for me at the time, all of the things that were frustrating within my business. So I guess to give a little rundown as to what I do. So I'm the founder of Urban Metal. We design and supply decorative laser cut screens and also artwork, sculptures and other pieces of metal work to enhance spaces with the aim of connecting people together. So business was going quite well, but it was frustrating at the time because I did feel that I had reached that ceiling where I wasn't really progressing and business wasn't growing as I was hoping it would. And it was after that point that you and I spoke, and I started in the advisory board program, or the starting up part of the program. And it was evident pretty quickly that that was going to be hugely beneficial for both myself and the business. So I think after the program, it was then that it was decided that I would go on to do board, where I was linked with, and I guess from that point in time where I started compared to where I am now, the growth in the business has been quite remarkable. And I guess also we've had quite a significant change in direction as well, which possibly wouldn't have happened without the support of the advisory board. So for me, at those initial stages, we were focusing on one more or less core target area of the business. And when we started to go through the advisory board program, I guess there were certain elements there I needed to go and what I needed to do to scale. So there were certain, I guess, areas of assessment within the program. I think possibly one of the best tools that was in the program was the business growth score. And what that did was it allowed me to look at the business through a fresh set of eyes in terms of not just looking at the facts and figures of the business, but also how, as a founder, I was feeling at the time in regards to how the business was performing. And I think that's a measure that we don't often look at. And through these, I guess, areas of assessment, we were then able to put in place a board which would help me to drive the business, you know, to where it needed to go. I can now say that business is fabulous. I'm probably more in love with doing what I'm doing than I have been for a very long time. We are on track to double our turnover this year, and you know, we've also had the flexibility of, like I said, changing our target market to better suit, I guess, the scale and growth of the business.
It's such exciting outcomes, Deb, and I really want to congratulate you on the hard work that you've put in to really maximize, I guess, the opportunities that were ahead of you, both the support opportunities, but the business opportunities that were there. Can I just ask a bit of a question? As a founder, your time is often very limited, and your bandwidth is limited, right? And in terms of your ability to process different information. One of the things that you were sharing with me is the commitment that it takes from a founder to, I guess, maximize the outcomes. What's also, I guess, important is that those outcomes are tailored to where you were at. Can you just expand a little bit on what's important to you as a founder when you're looking at a program to say, is that worth my time investment? Do I think it's going to change the trajectory of my business?
Yeah, sure. And you're exactly right. When we excuse me, when we do commit to these programs, we do look at it in terms of how much time will this take out of the day-to-day running of the business, and what impact is that going to give. So I think for me, I found in particular that when I do commit to these programs, I will give 100%. And I think that's a really key component, is that with the advisory board program, it's structured in a way that it allows us to work together really intensively without too much of a time commitment outside of the program. So I think there's a few things involved there as well, is that we're looking at it in terms of how much time is it going to take me to actually complete the program, how much time is it going to take me outside of the program, and also once the program is finished, can I leverage the program to continue on the work after it's complete. So that was, it was really well executed, I feel.
Yeah, thanks for that, Deb. Gillian, as you were sharing a little bit of the review that the government had undertaken in program design, it was really important that you looked at the systemic issues that were faced. Can you just expand on that a little bit about some of the learnings that you had from that review?
Yeah, sure. So I think one of the key sort of research findings that kicked off our exploration there was this one around the fact that women weren't attracting as much investment, but the returns on investing in a female-founded company were greater than not. So that really piqued our interest and my curiosity in particular, because it sort of felt like a really, baseline kind of proposition. If you can get a better return on your investment out of investing in this particular kind of product or service, why wouldn't you? And really, I think, triggered for us an inkling that something else was up, that it wasn't about women lacking confidence or experience. I mean, they were clearly delivering a quality sort of product or service or entity. They didn't need their skills to be developed in order to help them create a better business or develop a better business. It pointed out to us that there was something about the perceptions of investors or the way that investment is structured in our economy that was blocking women from accessing the same levels of investment that men or that other companies were able to attract. That was really the key bit of data around it. So it led us, I think, to consult then with other stakeholders, particularly in the investment sector, but also colleagues across government and in Treasury and other departments around what it might be about their programs or the way that their programs are structured or communicated that might make them less accessible to female founders. And that's a work in progress for us, I guess, when I say we're sort of deep into the intensive design part of the new initiatives now. That's what we're doing, having those discussions with potential partners and also going out to market broadly rather than sort of targeting particular entities that we know provide tailored programs for women. We're interested to partner with the broader industry and sector to see what sort of influence can be had on the way they design and deliver programs for women, but, you know, for all founders, but just making those programs more accessible for females.
Yeah, thanks so much, Gillian, and apologies for a little bit of, I think we're having a few internet bandwidth issues that's here. This idea of collaboration, I think, is incredibly important, especially when we look at it from the government viewpoint, where you might be supporting a range of initiatives. I certainly found from our experience being one of the providers of delivering a program, it was incredibly important for me to be also a champion for other programs that were there, because I found from a participant perspective, some of the female founders almost felt a little bit like they were double dipping, if I can kind of use that word, if they participated in multiple programs, or that somehow by gaining support in a different area, it diminished the support that they were getting from another program. And I think that we need to really work together as an ecosystem to strip more of that away, and to be able to say, wherever you're getting support, make sure it's fit for purpose, and then get the most you can out of that program before you start another program. But it's okay to take support from multiple places and to champion other programs that are there. Louise, I guess this is really one of the things that underpins the accelerator scholarship that you're trying to do, to take the learning around best practice and ethical engagement that Advisory Board Center has, and really use that to support other program offerings that are out there. Can you just expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely, Jan. And because you need the diversity around you, you need to tap into different resources, and the collaboration, it's not competition, it's a collaboration, because when you talk about fit for purpose, you've got a specific need. Everybody can't be everything to everyone, so need some kind of filter to be able to do that, but to collaborate is important. So we look at, say, where we see it from a research perspective. Deb, I really appreciate, I'm just going to do a sidestep here, I really appreciate that you've appreciated the growth score and what it does for you. A bit of history on that, the female founder research and the barriers to scale research we did was because of the data that we found from the growth score. From our collected database. So that information and evaluating what's going on in a business, but across businesses, helps us to identify issues and opportunities for businesses by having that data. So thank you for that. It's great to see that you got the insight for it, but we also get the insight for it as well. So the accelerators they're all ecosystems, and Gillian, you might want to say something about it. You've got so many different players in there that program managers, we find it can be disorientating knowing who's doing what, where's the value being created, where's, like Jan, you mentioned the predatory practice that can occur in it when people are fulfilling multiple roles. The different players that are supporting accelerators need to be able to know how to work with each other and collaborate to support the businesses we're all there to serve, which is the impact that all of us can have. But needing to have an ethics framework to understand what is acceptable, what's a conflict of interest and what's not, so that there's a high level of trust that's really engaged with those businesses that are looking for support. They don't know. They need to be able to trust in the system that there's some frameworks there that's going to look after them. So I don't know, Gillian, if you've got any comments around that.
I 100% agree with you about the complexity of an ecosystem. I mean, by definition, right, there's a whole bunch of different players or elements in an ecosystem, but they do all need to come together. And I think that's part of what's seen us put the emphasis on the system rather than the individuals as well, in terms of the new programs and where we want to take them, adjusting the system rather than trying to fix the individual. It's even through having targeted programs that are only or exclusively for particular gender or other target groups that government might have from time to time, as we found, that increased the participation rate. So more women were getting grants, but they weren't getting any more money, for example. The grants were of lower value, or that our initiatives would come and be there for a year or two, and then the pilot would end and the funding would dry up and nothing would come of it. So I'm not sure, I'm kind of going on a bit of a tangent from your main point, Louise, but I think suffice to say that, we see ourselves as one and an equal player amongst many in the ecosystem, and want to make sure that we do as much of what we do as possible in collaboration or in partnership. In fact, internally, we came up with a philosophy of 2 for 1, which is something that we just use, as I said, internally, but we never do anything on our own. It's always 2 for 1. So you always need to have a partner in place before you can get approval or, permission to start a new piece of work, or you can investigate as much as you like, but that requirement for collaboration with other stakeholder groups is critical to success, I think, in our female founders work as in our broader work with the ecosystem as well.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Gillian. I'd encourage anyone on the webinar today to also put any questions that they have in the Q&A section below so that we can answer those. I think one of the other core elements to supporting female founders is it's not a women's problem. It's actually an overall business opportunity that's available. Deb, in your particular project advisory board that you had, it wasn't about just women supporting women. You were actually supported by 2 real champion men on your advisory board. Did that change your perception of the program, or did you feel like you were only going to be supported by women with it being a female founder focused program?
Well, I hadn't actually given that any thought, to be honest, and I can only tell you that the 2 gentlemen who I was paired with, Mark and David, were incredible, and there was certainly no feeling that it was a female only program. It certainly wasn't anything like that. I think they just treated me as they would any other business, which actually is really important for me, because I don't like to think of myself as a female founder. I think of myself as a founder of a business. And so I think, to have that level of support where they would be treating me as equally as they would if it was, a male founder sitting beside me, then I think that's really important. For me, I think one of the big things which was touched on before was that level of trust and the ability to be vulnerable around them, because when you go into the program, obviously there's a certain amount of information that needs to be shared, and you want to know that that's in a safe space, and that information will be used, in a way that's really sensitive to the business. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you share your dreams with someone, you want to know that they're in a safe space as well, though, right? So it's the hard data about your business. You want to make sure there's sensitivity, but it's also the care factor for what you're there and trying to achieve. And you want to know that that's in a really safe space as well. So we often tell it, bring a bit of reality, but don't kill the dream, right? In the way that you support founders.
Yeah, and absolutely. And, for Mark and David, I think I could say on behalf of them that they are now invested in my dream. So they were really incredible.
Literally,
with their level of support. And yeah, no, they were incredible. And, a credit to the program, because prior to my advisory board, neither Mark nor David had met before. So the fact that I was paired with 2 gentlemen who just work so seamlessly together, I think is, you can't place the value on that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it goes a long way to having that common understanding of what an ethical framework is. What are we here to do, right? What's the purpose of what we're together for? Allows people to come together very quickly and create value in a relatively short space of time, and really focus on the impact that's going to matter. We had a really positive comment come through on the chat, which is around this idea of funding, not fixing female founders. And I know myself, in the many conversations that I had with women throughout this program, and I would often tell them that the big secret behind the Female Founders Program is we're going to be talking about the same information as we would if there were men in the room. However, we're making the accessibility and the contextualization of the program more accessible and meaningful to women, to meet them where they were at, right? So this idea that it's not about fixing, there's not a deficit, there's a fantastic opportunity to leverage to do that. So I certainly would like to see, as we continue to move forward, that we're able to just focus on programs that support founders and know that those programs are accessible to all types of founders. When we look at the wider sort of ecosystem of support and being able to access that, I think this concept of being advocates is a really important thing. So being advocates for other service providers, being advocates for other founders, and being advocates for other people who want to be able to champion in on this particular space and do really good work. I'm conscious of time today, and I appreciate everyone for making the investment in time. I just want to talk a little bit about opportunities for what's next. So Advance Queensland, Gillian, you shared that there'd be some more communication coming out about the Ignite Plus program, and I'm sure if people keep an eye on the Advance Queensland website, they'll see some of the announcements about Female Founders 2.0. I'm very excited to hear more about the investment opportunities that are coming up and ways to be able to leverage and amplify investment that's out there, create a bit of an attraction strategy. Louise, the Advisory Board Center team will share with people who've registered for the webinar today, I think, information about the Female Founders Research, as well as how they can access the Accelerator program, scholarship program. Advisory Board Center is also really happy to be providing another initiative under the Female Founders Program, which supports that alignment of advancing women on board. So being able to support more entrepreneurial women to be able to bring their expertise, skills, knowledge, and networks into a board level. And so there is the Board Pathways for Entrepreneurs program that's available through the Advisory Board Center website, and that's supported by Advance Queensland and Queensland Government as well. So that information will be included in being sent out. Before we wrap up, Louise, any final words that you'd like to share today?
I think it's been a tremendous initiative of the Queensland Government to take a long-term view on program development. And we wouldn't have had the impact if it was just say, let's do something for a year. It's that journey, it's a pathway, and it takes time to build up that confidence, the foundations, to then building out impact for the longer term. So it's not just a short, advisory boards are not a short-term fix. And it's great that I really applaud the Queensland Government for the way that they've really structured their view on how businesses are being supported on that pathway.
Yeah,
couldn't do it without the likes of you. Thank you.
It's that was certainly echoed throughout the program, and I guess, Deb, you're a bit of a living example of that, because when we first talked, the timing may not have been right for you and your business, but to know that there was longevity to the program meant you didn't miss your opportunity to participate just because you weren't ready yet. I think it's really important when people look at program design, and you've always got to balance this out against the commercials, but say, where are the ways that we can meet people where they're at, but also be available for them when they're ready in their own time. So how can you build longevity and I guess legacy into the programs that you offer? Because supporting female founders, it's a long-term game as well, right? Absolutely. Deb, thank you so much for sharing your story, and congratulations on your success, and really looking forward to continuing to watch your journey. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Gillian, thank you for your time, and Louise, thank you. And for everyone who's invested their time today in the webinar and has an interest in supporting female founders, please go out there and continue to do good work. And we look forward to sharing some additional programs with you following today's session. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.